Celina, Texas, charming, fast-growing, and the perfect place to live, or so is it?
Most realtors will tell you all about the good stuff, the school districts, the housing, all the cool new things coming to the community. But what they won't tell you, that's where things get a little messy. Before we get started, I'm Holly Haven.
And I'm Andy Haven.
And we are the Haven Home Team.
Celina may be one of the fastest growing cities, but something that a lot of people don't realize is that out of the 228 new communities, 209 of these communities have MUDs and PID taxes.
So Andy, are we going to explain what a MUD and PID tax is?
That's something that we will get to later in this video.
Before you start packing, there's probably a few more things you need to know because making the wrong decision could definitely cost you more than money.
We're going to share the secrets about Celina that nobody tells you so that you can decide if Celina is a place where you want to live.
Starting with number 4, the tax burden.
MUDs and PIDs. Something people are so scared of. It's actually something that whenever I was moving to Celina, I was like, oh my gosh, how much is this going to increase my mortgage? Because that is something that you have to think about, especially with MUDs. They do increase your taxes. It is a percentage increase on your taxes. With PIDs, it's kind of nice. It is a chunk of money that you spend every year, but it has a deadline, a death date, as we call it, that the PIDs will no longer exist. So if you're holding onto a property for a really long time, it is something that a PID is a little bit more convenient, something that you would want to purchase if you were looking at a long-term investment. The other thing that I wanted to mention is a WCID. This is a water conservation improvement district. This is something that some of the larger master plan communities are implementing. And this is because, again, just like the other two, the developers are not able to keep up with the infrastructure and the development of the sewage system. So they are now implementing third-party companies to come in and purchase the sewer system. And when you're paying your taxes, you are now paying a third-party company and not developer like we do with MUDs and PIDs.
Yeah, and same thing, your water. And what is happening is because Celina is growing so quickly, we have so many homes being built, so many housing permits, that the infrastructure of a small farming community is really what Celina was just a few short years ago.
Yeah, and I will say that that is something that's kind of a hard point in Celina. Celina's water is something that you want to be aware of. It is more expensive than most other cities, but I will say that they are working really hard to help improve that because they do know that the growth of Celina is going to take a toll on a lot of our utilities. So they are improving the utilities as they see fit, especially roads, sewage lines, electricity. If you drive through the city of Celina, you can actually see that they have put in pretty much brand new electrical lines all over Celina to help improve the power grid so that when we do have some more infrastructure, we don't have blackouts like we did in 2022. Is that what it was?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say, if you have those questions, ask. It is not cost prohibitive. It is not like if there is somebody in the city of Celina that is not in a PID, they are at a specific tax rate. You will pay a slightly lower tax rate with the PID or MUD added on top. So it does offset itself a little bit. It's not really an apples to apples comparison. The other thing, and this is not just for Celina, but it is a big thing, is the HOA cost.
Yeah, it's something that you definitely want to take into consideration when you're considering your mortgage. But places like Light Farms, their HOA fees are just a little bit higher, but they also mow your front yard. So if you're taking that into comparison, it might make more sense to live in a larger community with higher HOA that does provide some of those amenities.
Yeah, and really what we see is, we get a lot of requests for, I do not want to live in an HOA. And this is people moving from other parts of the country or other parts of the state. And they have this, negative connotation in their head, which obviously there's pros and cons to HOAs. I'm sure we could do a video on that. But really what the HOA does is it does help protect the equity and the value of your home growth.
It does. And the other thing that it does is allow for the community to have amenities such as community pools, parks, ponds, the upkeep of the front signage of the neighborhood, which is the first kind of appearance that people have of your neighborhood. If you're looking to sell your house and the sign in the front looks horrible, that's not something that's going to give people a good first look at the property.
Yeah, and as much as you might be turned off by the HOA rules and requirements, most of us don't want to look at our front door and see, bright pink or purple front doors and trims on the house across the street. We don't want to see cars parked in the yard. Those are the things that the HOA is intended to protect us against. So HOAs might be considered a con, but you're gonna find it pretty much all over North Texas.
Coming in at number 3, the cost of living. It's not as affordable as you may think. Celina, Texas might seem like a good deal at first. You've heard, oh my gosh, Celina's a booming city, and that's what really attracts you to the city, but it's just not as affordable as some of the other surrounding areas. Celina's average home sold price right now is just around $645,000, which is much higher than people would assume when they think of small Texas town. They would assume in the $200,000 and $300,000 price point, but when we're looking at that, we're actually looking much more north and east or west of the centrally located Dallas North Tollway. If you want the convenience, you will be paying a higher price.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say Celina is the new Frisco. So when Frisco was really booming and people were trying to find something a little bit more cost effective, they were moving north and east out to these smaller growing towns. And Prosper used to be one of those growing towns that we could get in, and it was more cost effective than Frisco. That has changed over the last 10 years. And now we're seeing Celina be kind of that next big move north and that booming city. And so the way that it compares to some of those, again, growing outside communities like Pilot Point, where we have an average price of $287,000, it's a very different comparison.
Well, and then when we get into land values, we're seeing land out here for the smallest amount of money that you can purchase land right now. Just raw land is $250,000 an acre is what we're seeing. So it's not as attainable as it used to be, definitely not as attainable as it used to be. If you are looking for land and want to build privately, you don't want to use an existing builder, that is pretty much non-existent in the city of Celina.
Our utility prices are quite a bit higher than other surrounding areas, and that could even be compared to Prosper. So there's definitely kind of that downside of really, if you're going to buy a house, start looking at all the costs that go into owning and maintaining that house. And these things do make a difference.
When you add up all of the costs, Celina's cost of living index is 129, which is actually 29% ahead of the national average. This makes Celina actually a very, very expensive rural town to live in.
So moving on to number 2, limited entertainment and shopping. But don't worry, it's still developing.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of people say is actually a con, but I think it makes Celina a little bit more desirable. It's a little bit more peaceful, more quiet, and there's still a lot of family friendly and like the whole town is involved in any event that happens in Celina, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, this is exactly the town that you think of when you hear of Friday Night Lights, Friday Night Football. This is Celina, Texas, and that is actually the older residents. That's the part they're sad about. We're going to start to lose that feel as we get high schools, number 2, 3, 4, 5, right? However many high schools we get. But that kind of brings us back to that community feel. The Celina downtown, that is where our community comes together and really feels that rural, small town, kind of still feels like a farming community, even though it's growing so quickly. We just got the Silos of Celina that went in. Amazing. High-end bar and food and cocktails and a really cool open outdoor space, to watch football games. And oh my gosh, there's so many options.
Yeah, I think the one that I'm most excited to try is Mangiamo's. I haven't made it out there yet. They're closed on Mondays, just like pretty much everything else in downtown Celina, since we are still a small southern town.
That is the con. That's the downside, is you can't go eat anywhere in downtown on Mondays. I think Papagayo's is the only thing open on Mondays.
That is why I ended up there last night for dinner. So there are so many fun and new and exciting restaurants that are opening. We have brunch places now. We have just bars. We have just bakeries.
I know. We have Granny's Bakery. We have the Wick, which is an excellent little brunch, breakfast, kind of light lunch place. Toasted Walnut. And that's not even to mention all of the really cool boutiques. If I need a gift in a pinch, I can run right down to Celina downtown and I can find something for pretty much anyone. Whether it's, high-end candles or cute boutique clothing or baby gifts or whatever it is, you're going to be able to find it. So we love that con of Celina is actually one of the pros for us. There's a lot of chatter about the things that are coming to Celina. People do want the convenience of Walmart's and the H-E-B grocery store and the big gyms. And those things are great for that tax burden, as we discussed in the last point, but it definitely starts to lessen that small town feel.
Well, and I think the other thing is the events. The Celina is really, really great. They have a whole entire division that is seriously like they work only on events for downtown Celina. I think it really brings everybody together. Friday night markets is something that people absolutely rave about. We only do it, obviously, not in football season because Fridays are for football.
Nobody would show up and be completely empty.
Yeah, but spring, all the way through summer, I believe, is when we have Friday night markets. And it's actually something that vendors can apply for to be a part of the Friday night market. So again, it brings even more small businesses in to be kind of get the, I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
It's just a sense of community. You really do know that you might, if you're at the farmer's market, you're buying from a local farmer. You're buying eggs that were laid right here in Celina, Texas most times. So it's just a really cool con of Celina, I guess.
Coming in at number 1, we have the unpredictable weather.
I mean, unpredictable is an understatement.
Yeah, we seriously have bipolar climate is what we have here, and there's no cure for it.
That is so true. I mean, we can start using our pool in May, and we can use it all the way through September, which is great news. But we could also, have an 80-degree day in February and wake up the next morning and it's literally 32 degrees and there's snow falling. Yeah. So we have very unpredictable weather.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to add to that is that we do have quite severe weather. Although it's nothing like being on the coast and having a hurricane, we do have some slight tornadoes. I won't say that we're like just completely in Tornado Alley, but we do have some tornadic weather issues. Yes. We also have hail, which that brings us to the point of getting a new roof every 2 to 5 years. Something that if you're moving to the area, that's not just Celina, that's all of North Texas and all the way through Oklahoma and even further north. It's something that you just want to prepare for.
We have wind gusts, 10 to 20 miles an hour is super normal here, but 40 and plus can happen pretty consistently, especially through the spring, these kind of spring months. It gets a little tumultuous as the weather's changing.
Yeah, I will say through March through May is really our hail season. And this is something where if you are deciding to move into an older home that does not have a garage, this is something that you may want to consider.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. We have a lot of families who move here and they're like, oh my gosh, we don't even use the garage wherever they're moving from. And really guys, it can't be a full storage unit in there. You have to be able to get a car in, especially if it's a car you really care about, because we are going to get hail damage at some point during the year, every single year. So it doesn't always come with a warning. It just starts falling out of the sky. So we definitely have some unpredictable weather.
Definitely unpredictable and something you kind of just want to stay aware of.
All right, guys. So it's decision time. Is Celina actually right for you? I don't know. Are we thinking about MUDs and PIDs and HOAs and crazy weather?
Or are we thinking about Friday night lights, Friday night market, fun community events in downtown, the small town feel?
Yeah, definitely that one.
If you thought that this was a valuable video and you want to see what we have to offer next week, please go ahead and like and subscribe, and we hope to see you in our next video.
Yes, if you have any comments, feel free to leave those down below. We would love to answer your questions and be a resource for you as you look to make that move to Texas or just to North Texas.
We will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.